Rockstars of Swift, it's Professor Gallagher, and at this point in our Intro to Swift UI playlist, you've worked with images, with text views, created buttons, you've worked with modifiers, you've learned about VStacks and HStacks, variables and state and frames. Now it's time to apply all of this and to build a new project from scratch in the Elvis Costello Challenge. Now, for those of you that don't know, Declan McManus, the British rocker known musically as Elvis Costello, and also holder of the rank Order of the British Empire bestowed on him by the late Queen Elizabeth, is the musical genius behind multiple hit songs including Allison, Pump It Up, Watching the Detectives, and of course, Peace, Love, and Understanding. This last song is the inspiration for your first full app challenge. I'd play you a clip now, but YouTube has been known to banish content that uses copyright songs, so I'll leave it for you to look up on your own. Now, your challenge is to create a new Xcode project from scratch. Name this Elvis. Build the app as demonstrated at the right. Use the color purple for the text views and the buttons. All text views use the large title font in black weight. The message text view should initially be blank. You can refer to this as message in your code so that we can compare our results. The image view should initially be blank. You can refer to this as image name in your code, again, so we can compare. And the image should display inside a 300 by 300 square. Now use the library tool to discover appropriate symbols. Hint, look for a peace sign, heart, and light bulb. So right about now, Funky Swifter, why don't you pause, give this a try, and when you're ready, resume, and let's compare answers. So hopefully you remember the project setup steps. If not, here they are quickly. We'll open up Xcode. We'll create a new project. This is an app for iOS. Those are the defaults. Click Next. The product name should be Elvis. Defaults here should all be as is as well. You likely have your personal team already selected. Swift UI is the interface. Swift is language. No storage. No need to include tests. Click Next. I'll save mine to the desktop. Make sure Create Git Repository is clicked. Click Create. And our project is created. I'll double-click on the title bar to expand to full screen, close the navigator's pane, shrink the preview pane, and we're ready to code. Now I'm going to highlight and delete the image with its modifiers, and with just the text view left, I'm going to change its string to read, "What's so funny 'bout?" Now the challenge asked for the text views to be large title, black weight, and the color purple, so underneath the text view we'll add the .font modifier passing in .large title as the font, we'll add the .font weight modifier passing in .black, and we'll add the .foreground style modifier passing in .purple as the color. Looks good. Now we want this text view to be flush with the top, so I'm going to enter a spacer with open and close parens, nothing between those parens. With this entered just below the text view, it pushes the text view up to the top. Nice. And below the spacer, we'll add an image view. And when we type in image, code completion gives us lots of options. We're working with system images or symbols. So we want to select the option with the system name parameter. Select that, press enter. And now let's figure out what symbols we're going to use. Click the plus in the upper right to open the library. And click the symbols library icon at the far right of the tab bar. And I didn't give you the names since I wanted to encourage you to search, but I did give you some pretty strong hints. So if we search for peace, we see peace sign, all one word. All lowercase, that's one of our symbols. Search for heart, and we see heart as our love symbol. And search for light bulb, all one word, all lowercase, that's going to be our understanding symbol. So armed with this knowledge, let's head back to the code editor, and for the image's symbol name, I'll pass in the string, peace sign, one word, all lowercase. But we'll change this in a bit. When we're done with the app, we want to start out with a blank image and a blank text view underneath this, but I want something in here while I finish my screen design. Now our peace sign is teeny tiny, but we can add the .resizable modifier, nothing between the parens. This stretches out the image all gnarly like and it takes up the full screen, but to preserve the image's aspect ratio, we enter the .scale to fit modifier, nothing between parens, and this is much better. Now to center that image, I'm going to enter another spacer below it, and in between the image and the spacer, I want to enter a text view that will change when I press the buttons. Now since that text view is going to have modifiers that are identical to the top text view, I'm just going to highlight that top text view and its modifiers, Command-C to copy, and then I'll Command-V to paste this just below the image but above the bottommost spacer. And now why don't we set up our variables so that we can change the image view and the second text view when we click buttons. Now remember, we create variables that we want to use throughout the file inside our struct and above the body variable. So we'll make some space in there, and the variable to hold the changing message will be called message. So we'll enter a line here that reads @state private var message. We declare that variable as a state variable. Make sure that you've got @ and capital S with no space, and follow that with equal, and for now we'll set it equal to the string peace with a capital P, although we'll eventually change this to an empty string. So we've just declared the message variable. That means we've created the variable message, a box to hold data, and initialized it, meaning we put some initial data in there, which is the string piece. And below this, we'll create a variable to hold the system name string that we're going to use in our image view. We'll call this image name, lower camel case. So we'll say @state private var image name, again, lower camel case, so that's all one word, only the N is capitalized. And we'll initialize this variable by setting it equal to the string, so in between double quotes, peace sign, all lowercase, all one word. Now, let's use these variables. In the image view, we'll replace the literal string peace sign with the variable name, image name, no quotes in there. This is a variable, not a string. And in the text view, below this, we'll replace the literal string with the variable message. So our image now has the system name, which is peace sign. That's the same as the literal string that we had before. And the text message changes because it's now using the string inside of our message variable, which is peace with a capital P. Now below the last spacer, let's create an H stack for our buttons so we can put them side by side horizontally. And this is with a capital H, capital S, and open and close curlies. And in between the curlies, remember we call that a closure in Swift. We'll enter button, and Xcode gives us lots of options for creating buttons, but we'll usually use this one here with the title key and the action. So highlight that option and press return. Now the title key is just a string that we're going to use for the button's title, so this should be the word peace between double quotes. It's a string with a capital P. And remember this part, if we tab over to our action, remember we discussed in a previous lesson how to change this format to the trailing closure format? You just press return here. And Xcode closes the button line with an open paren. It adds a close paren for our action, and it gives us a line in between where we can add our action code. Now the action code is what happens when we click on this button. And what we want to do is we want to change the message to the string peace and the image name to the string peace sign. Now we are eventually going to initialize those two variables to empty strings when the app starts. We just put some values in there now so that we could see something in these views when we were creating our app's interface. So between the curlies, we'll say message equals the string peace, so between double quotes, that's capital P, peace. This is what's going to show up in the message. And below this, we'll add a second line, image name equals, in between double quotes, peace sign. That's all one word, all lowercase, because that matches the system name for the peace sign image that we looked up earlier. So again, to know how this is going to work, when that peace button is pressed, the state variable for the message is going to be updated to contain the string peace, and the state variable for image name is going to be updated to contain the string peace sign. Now SwiftUI will recognize that some of the data in the app has changed. It's going to change the image view and the text view. Since those are state variables, it's going to throw away the old user interface. It's going to recreate a new one super fast using this updated data. But since these two variables are state variables, they can be mutated, they can be changed, and they're parked off to the side so that they don't get thrown away with the rest of the user interface. Instead, they keep their value, they keep their state. Cool. Now we'll eventually initialize those two variables to empty strings. We just put values in there now so that we could see something in the views when we're creating our app's user interface. Now we're going to eventually add two more buttons inside the H stack, and all those buttons will have the same modifiers. They're going to be purple, and they're going to use the border prominent style. So I'm going to put the button modifier below the H stack's closing curly, and by doing this, I don't have to repeat the modifiers below each button. So we'll start out by adding .tint. Remember, we use the tint modifier and not the foreground style modifier when we're changing color on an interactive view like a button, and we'll set the color to .purple. And we'll add another modifier, .button style, changing this to .bordered prominent. And this looks great. Now we want to add two more buttons inside of the curlies for the H stack, and I could type the code for this, but to save time, I'm going to copy the button that I created along with its action trailing closure. I'll Command C to copy this, and I'll paste two copies below this, Command V twice, and I'll change the middle button's title string to read love, capital L, and in its action, I'll set the message equal to the string love, capital L, and the image name equal to the string heart. Heart should be spelled all lowercase. Remember, that's going to match to the system name of the symbol we want to use. And the last button should have the title string understanding with a message under it also understanding, and the image name should be set to light bulb, all one word, all lowercase. And these buttons work! Niceness! But there are two things that we need to change. The images are not constrained by a 300 by 300 frame as the problem requested, so we'll add a frame modifier to the image, and that will prevent our text view underneath the image from bouncing around. And also, the problem said that the app should start with nothing in the central image and text view, So we'll just change the initialization of our state variables so that they both have empty strings. And remember, when an image view is passed a system name that doesn't match with an existing symbol, it just shows an empty image with nothing inside it. So with those two variables initialized to empty strings, now let's add a frame modifier below the image view. We want to add one with width and height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type .fram to highlight the frame modifier. Without typing any space, I'm also going to type wi to highlight the width parameter and he to highlight the height parameter. Xcode highlights these three values. When I press return, it's going to enter those three values, but not alignment. That's not highlighted. So press return. Nice. I'll enter 300 for my width, tab over, enter 300 for the height. And as we click our individual buttons, our app works exactly as requested in the challenge problem. Fantastic work, Swifter. I'm rocking to your mellifluous Swift skills. Now, if you struggled with this, hopefully things are clear now that we've gone through the solution. And what I always advise my students to do is that if anything tripped you up, then you should return to this challenge in a day or so and continue to try to complete it again on your own until you can finish this without any errors and without having to look at your notes. Remember, if you need to, it's totally fine to review past lessons. But Swiftmeister, I hope you're feeling skilled. I hope you're enjoying our time together. Drop a like and post a comment below. And remember, if you social post with the Built with Prof G hashtag, you might be selected for the free My Mac Builds Apps laptop sticker. There's more goodness to come, so continue the hacking.